And we are back on My Mayor. Joining me is candidate Darden Rice. Hello, Darden.
Hi, Joe. Thank you. It's great to be back.
So how's life on the campaign trail?
It's going really well. There's a lot happening. I was real excited that last week we had our first in-person candidate forum at historic Uptown neighborhood, outside right there at Round Lake. And there's a lot going on. I'm going to be bartending at Enigma next week, and I'm particularly looking forward to the Juneteenth events at the factory this weekend. It's going to be a really great weekend of seeing Black artists and expression and live performances at the factory. So I'm really particularly looking forward to that.
So today we are trying to get our head around the Tropicana Field redevelopment initiative, and there's a lot of perspectives out there, and there's a lot of data points out there, and so love to hear your take on that. And we're breaking it up and looking at the past, the present, and the future. So, what are some important perspectives and data points that we need to have in our brains about the past with regard to the Trop site?
Well, I think some of the most important data points to keep in mind about the past when it comes to Tropicana Field are the Black families who are displaced from the gas plant area. And we know that there were about 2,000 people who were displaced, including about 500 Black households, 9 Black churches, and 30 Black businesses. So I think that's something very much to keep in the forefront of our mind as we talk about Tropicana Field redevelopment and why it's so important to get it right, and why things like affordable housing and good paying jobs is really so critical to getting this right.
When we look back at how that, the original intention for the Trop and the promises that were made with that intention, that didn't come to fruition immediately. And then a little further down the road, there was actually a pivot in the purpose of the Trop. And with that pivot, some of those original promises really weren't even included in what the new direction was. So, what lessons can we learn from that when it comes to mapping vision? And ultimately, we did get a team, and that was very important for St. Pete. But along the way, there were some costs and some changes. And so, with that sort of historical perspective in mind, how do you handle grand visions and taking big sort of moonshots and leaps forward versus respecting history and people's lives, as we saw play out in a really unfortunate way with the Trop.
Well, it goes to show how absolutely vital transparency and accountability is. The community has to be working with us at every step of the way. There's not going to be any switcheroos this time around. And we really just have to have the mindset and the skill set and the leadership skills that I think I have as a progressive mayor, an aspiring progressive mayor, to work hand in hand with the community and trust that people understand that sometimes there could be changes. But, we've got to work closely with the community to plot out this dream of what we want to do next and involve the community every step of the way. And sometimes it's difficult for people that seems like a messier process to some people, but I think it's the right process to engage the public to make sure that we stay on track for doing this right. And I think that what happened in the past really goes to show what happens if we don't keep our eyes really closely on the ball. And it's why, as the next aspiring mayor, that I will work very closely in a very transparent way. And I want to be held accountable for the plans we say we're going to do.
So that brings us to where we are today. We're at another inflection point, and some big changes are going to be coming. Can you help us understand sort of the different perspectives and players that are involved in the wranglings and sort of the state of the communication and negotiations today with regard to the different stakeholders?
Well, we have the people of St. Petersburg. We have the Black community of St. Petersburg, where The broken promises of prosperity or the prosperity that was never shared is certainly an important thing that just has got to be at the forefront of all of our minds. We've got the county, which has a big role to play with this. We have the Rays, and we have the current mayor, and we have our city council. Just to start out with, we also have some business groups like the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Partnership that are also very engaged in this process. So you have those are some of the main stakeholders in this confluence of groups that are working on what we do next. And of course, we've recently brought to the table a number of development groups that have submitted proposals for how they envision the Tropicana Field redevelopment site with and without a stadium. I should add that there's some other stakeholder groups too that, once you look at the Rays, there's a number of groups standing behind them with Major League Baseball, the Players Union, Montreal, who is also going through a mayor's race right now. So it's a very interesting group of people.
Yeah, so understanding those stakeholders, it feels like we have different lanes kind of moving at different speeds with regard to moving forward. Some folks are pushing very hard for one lane with the existing developers. Other folks want to slow down. The Rays are kind of in between, it seems, and so just trying to understand, why we aren't all in sync. Moving at sort of the same speed, and what are the causes of those differences?
Well, I led the charge for City Council to pass a resolution about a month ago, basically putting on the brakes for the master developer RFP process. And I thought it was really important, as did my colleagues, as did a number of other stakeholders that we just mentioned. Thought it was really important that we need to, number one, really understand what's going on with the Rays before we can take one step further. I do not see that as stopping progress at all, respectfully. I think that trying to move ahead without the Rays doesn't make sense. We could end up going in a direction that they don't agree with, and we could waste a lot of time and possibly risk litigation by doing that. We need to know from them what's going on. And to be fair, they need to tell us what they want. It's hard to negotiate with people who don't tell you what they want. So I think that, my look at it is a balance of, I want to put my city first, as always, but I want to give the Rays the benefit of the doubt to make their presentation to the city and the public about the two-city idea with Montreal. The public will let us know pretty quick enough if they like it or not, and if there's wiggle room or if there's a way to make it work. I think we're going to find out pretty soon. And hopefully, if there is a way to work things out, I think it'll be the next mayor who negotiates us and leads us through those next steps. It could be many years. And I think also that if it turns out that what the Rays want isn't compatible with what our citizens want, then we just negotiate, an end to this lease use agreement. We find out an agreeable number, and we shake hands and we go on our way. I think St. Pete is in a fantastic position either way, but there's too much on the table with the Rays. I don't want to just give it up so quickly. I really want to give them the chance as time is running out. I want to give them the chance to really make a good pitch to us about what they see for building a future for baseball, a continued future for baseball in St. Petersburg.
Thank you. So then, as we move into the future, as mayor, what would be the elements of the North Star that you would put forth for St. Petersburg to walk towards with regards to different elements that the Tropicana Field should include when it's fully baked?
Well, we have some world-class opportunities ahead of us. No other city has the 85 something acres of urban infill redevelopment. And St. Pete is a great city. I want to make sure that we continue our incredible pathway and our progress and still maintain our quality of life and who we are. So I think the Tropicana Field redevelopment is an incredible opportunity to bring in good paying jobs. I think it's an opportunity to help expand, a research institution, possibly a mid-sized convention. I think that the opportunities we have ahead of us are pretty incredible, which is why it's so important to get it right and to make sure that we do it in the St. Pete way. I also really love the idea of having sort of a centralized, like a green space. It could be centered around the redevelopment of Booker Creek, but I really love the idea of a green space, an activated park that really unites and connects the city, as well as connect the buildings and connects Tropicana Field to the rest of the city. So I think our process so far has been pretty good in identifying a number of those things that we want in the mix, but we need to be really sure to continue to work with the public and really make sure that what is being built and what we are negotiating, that all of the things that we want are really kept in there, true to vision.
So when we look at that green space, I think a lot of a lot of that centers around Booker Creek and kind of moving to the south side of the site, and that brings 175 into play. So what are your thoughts on where that second off ramp, south off ramp from 275, should play into the new development?
Well, as you know, I'm chair of Forward Pinellas, and in my work on Forward Pinellas, I've been an advocate for what we call our downtown mobility study. And the downtown mobility study looks at that issue. It also looks at a number of other issues. It also looks at what we're going to do with the 375 spur. And it looks at returning some of our one-way streets to two-way streets, specifically 4th and 9th Street. But let's get back to 175. So it's no secret that the highway system did, rip spurs through the Black community. 175 in particular tore down, the Sugar Hill neighborhood, Black neighborhood in South St. Pete. So I think that there, is a way to reckon with history and look at, what happened then to figure out what we can do to help restore the connectivity of the city, because those spurs do create a wall of sorts and certainly interrupts the grid system so that there's not as much connectivity between the south side and Tropicana Field redevelopment. So I think it'll be interesting to see what the study continues to say. And I know people don't like studies, but this study is necessary as a first step for anything else that we do that is part of the planning, development, and engineering process. We would have to go through this step. So it is necessary. I will keep an open mind to it. I'm glad that FDOT, the Florida Department of Transportation, is looking at what it might mean to bring 175 down to grade so that we could have better connections. At the same time, it's a very serious issue. A lot of people see the highway coming into downtown as an asset, and the hospitals, I know, are not really keen on us doing away with that easy access to the interstate. So, like with everything, there's balance, and we've got to look at a number of factors. I do think either way, whether we build a better connection from Tropicana Field, we either go over the highway or under it. I think that potential is there, and I think that's very clear. I'm waiting to see what the study's going to say, and really to see how sincere FDOT is in their interest to basically kind of dismantle a huge asset. So we'll see what happens, but the fact we're having this conversation I think it's very exciting and it's progressive. We're being proactive and we're looking at what our options are. So that information from the downtown mobility study will be very important for helping us, have access to good information for making decisions, which leads me to my next point as well. I completely support hiring a stadium consultant to guide us through these next steps. I think a stadium consultant will bring in insight and expertise that we all need in terms of trying to suss out what the cost of a stadium, the benefits of baseball. It'll help us understand what's happening with the larger picture with Major League Baseball and the Players Union. It'll help us understand what's happening on the Montreal side of the equation. And it will give us the opportunity for council members, for the public, for the mayor, the county to really come to the table and have a much clearer picture of the information we're working with. And that's far better than having each of us go in our own way, doing our own research or filling in the blanks with opinions or emotions. I think that a stadium consultant would definitely benefit our present mayor, would undoubtedly benefit the future mayor. But most of all, really, I think the public would benefit because we can start to get a handle on a lot of the facts at hand on which to make our decisions instead of this volleying of opinions and sometimes insults. And we definitely want to get away from talking past each other. And we want to really dig into the information at hand so we can make some really good decisions. I don't think we have it yet. I think the stadium consultant will help us fill in those blanks. I think it's the right thing to do to move ahead.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, candidate Darden Rice. I'm my mayor. Good to see you as always, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.